In his article, Mourning and Melancholia, when Freud refers to the person that one has lost and for which one mourns, he writes the word object and not person. Freud already delineated a foundation for Lacan to respond to the question, who is the other? And to construct this concept, he calls object A. Who is that other whom I loved, who has disappeared, and for which I mourn? Freud says, object. Lloyd will say, object A. I have read Mourning and Melancholia, Lacan confides, and for me it sufficed to read this text to find object A. That does not mean that the lost object is called object A, but object A responds to the question, who is the other? Why? In order to be better understood, we can make the question of the other more complex and ask, who is the one facing me? Who is it? Is it a body? Is it an image? Is it a symbolic representation? Let's put ourselves in the place of the analsand who, lying on the couch, asks, what is this presence behind me? Is it a voice, a breath, a dream, a product of thought? Who is the other? The analyst will not respond. The other is, but will simply say, in order to respond to such a question, let us construct object A. The letter A is a manner of naming the difficulty. It holds the place of a non-response. Recall the spirit of Lacanian approach, which instead of resolving a problem, give it a name. The best example of this approach is precisely object A. Indeed, object A is certainly one of the most remarkable examples of Lacanian algebra. I would even say that it's the paradigm of all psychoanalytic algorithms. What is object A? Object A is only a letter, nothing more than a letter A having the central function of naming an unresolved problem, or rather of signifying an absence. What is this absence? The absence of a response to a question which is constantly repeated. Since we have not found the solution that we hoped for and required, we mark it with a simple notation, a simple letter. The opaque hole of our ignorance. We put a letter in the place of a response that is not given. Object A designates thus an impossibility, a point of resistance to theoretical development. With this notation, why can't I get that right? We can, in spite of our obstacles, continue our research without the chain of knowledge being broken. You see, object A is funnily a ruse of analytic thinking in order to circumvent the rock of the impossible. We circumvent the real by representing it with a letter. Now, what is the question for which the response is A? That is to say, a simple letter of empty meaning. Well, that turns into a question. The question then becomes formulated quite differently according to a theoretical context, but one which addresses object A directly is, who is the other? My partner, the person who is loved. When Freud wrote the subject mourn for the lost object, he did not say for the person who is loved and lost, but for the lost object. Why? Who is the person who is loved that one lost? What signifies for us the other one loves or has loved is present or that is lost.
Yeah.
What place does the lost person occupy for us?
I told you.
But is it really a person?
It's easy.
One could suggest that it is an image. The person loved is our own image.
It really is.
That we love. That is right, but not sufficient. Another response would be, the loved person is not an image. The loved person is a bodily extension of our own body. This is also right, but is also insufficient. A third response, finally, would describe the person loved as a representation of a history or a collection of past experiences. More precisely, this person would bear the common mark or the common feature of all persons loved in the course of a life. In this respect, we can refer to Freud's group psychology and the analysis of the ego, in which he distinguishes three types of identification, one of which is the identification of the subject with the feature of the object, that is, with one feature of all persons that we have loved. Freud provides us this article with an observation that is important for understanding how a man-woman couple is formed. We love the one who carries the feature of the preceding love object, and this to such an extent that could go as far as to claim that in one's life all the persons that we have loved share one feature. Indeed, when one has a new encounter, one is often surprised to note that he or she carries the feature of the loved person who was loved before. Freud's brilliant idea was to reveal this, that this was the mark that persists and is repeated in the first, the second, and in all successive partners in a history, is a feature, and that this feature is nothing more than ourselves.
I don't mind helping you. Step 2. Okay, step 3.
The subject is the common feature of the objects loved and lost in one's life. This is precisely what Lacan calls the unary trait, la trait unaire. If we consider the three possible responses to the question, who is the other, we would say the loved other is the image that I love of myself. The loved other is a body that is an extension of mine. The loved other is a repetitive feature with which I identify. For none of these cases, the first imaginary, the other as an image, the second phantasmatic, the other as a body, and the third symbolic, the other as a feature which condenses a history, reveals the essence of the other, or the loved other in this case. In the end, we do not know who the chosen other is. Now it is precisely here that object A appears as holding the place of a non-response. We will see that of the three approaches to the identification of the other, imaginary, phantasmatic, and symbolic, the second relates most directly to the Lacanian concept of object A. The chosen other is the phantasmic part of the body undergoing jouissance, which both extends and exceeds me. How is object A considered as its non-response to the enigma of the other, articulated with signifiers in the structure of the unconscious?
Do you understand it?
The question, who is the other, is one of many ways to situate object A, but is not the only one. Another question, for example, is one that we've already posed at the end of the first lesson. What is the nature of the energy of psychic life? Or, what is the cause that animates our desire? Since we cannot respond to these questions, we write the letter A. With this writing, we can follow the movement of formalization and other written signs without being concerned with insoluble questions. The symptom, properly speaking, is an event, an analysis, one of the forms in which the experience occurs. All analytic experiences are not symptoms, but any symptoms manifested in the course of the cure constitutes an analytic experience. The experience is punctuated phenomenon, a uniquely privileged moment that marks and defines the path of analysis. The experience is a series of moments anticipated by the psychoanalyst, fleeting moments, and quite ideal as geometric points. And nevertheless, the experience is not only an abstract geometric point, it's an empirical aspect as well. I would say even a sensible aspect, as aspect that is perceptible by the senses, which is presented as that moment when the patient speaks and does not know what he or she says. It is that moment when the patient speaks and does not know what he or she is going to say. It is that moment when the patient speaks and he or she does not know what he or she speaking is going to say when the perceptible, the senses presented, speaks. She says,
of an oblique strategy, I would call it.
It is the moment of a stutter when the patient stammers, the moment when he or she hesitates and speech fails.
Than an instruction.
It is said that Lacanian analysts are interested in language and that they're mistakenly classified
Can we
as
classify
linguists.
this as what?
This is a mistake
Strategy?
because psychoanalysts are not
We'll call it a
linguistic.
strategy. All right, mark it down.
Psychoanalysts are indeed interested in language,
Claire, do you have that?
but they are only interested
Bob, do you
in the
have that
limit
written
where
down?
language fails. Psychoanalysts
Put your
are
hand down.
interested in language, but they are only interested in the limit where language fails. Oh, that was a good one. Oh, hell yeah, that was good. Oh, damn. Oh, geez. Oh.
All right, is this an instruction manual? All right,
We are
Larry.
attentive to the moments at which
his mic
language
on.
slips and speech goes astray.
Is that in the script? I don't think so.
Let us consider a dream, for example.
I don't think so.
We
check the
accord
mic
more
levels.
importance to the way that the dream is
Larry,
recounted
check the mic levels.
than to the dream itself.
We good? Okay.
Let us consider the dream, for example. We are considered.
All right.
Let us. Oh, wait a minute.
Do you?
Where am I? What am I trying? What am I trying to say?
Instructions.
Oh yeah.
Can you follow the instructions?
Let us consider a dream, for example.
Just relax.
We accord more importance to the way that the dream is recounted than to the dream itself, and not only to the way it is recounted, but above all to the precise point of the narrative when the patient is not sure and says, I don't know. I don't know. I cannot remember anymore. Well, perhaps, maybe, I can't remember what I was going to say. Wait, I lost my place. What was I talking about? I don't know. That's all I can remember. Then it just stopped. This is the point that we refer to as experience, the perceptible side of experience. A stutter, an uncertainty, a moment which escapes us. The moment which escapes us. It's uncertainty, a stutter. It's imperceptible. The analyst, and it escapes us. This describes the empirical aspect of the experience. Now we come to the abstract aspect of analytic experience to compete. compete. Oh, yeah. Now we come to the, all right, let me start again. Now. Okay, now. Now. Right now. Right now. This moment. Right now. Now. Oh, right now. Now we come to the aspect of, I'll start again. Now we come to the abstract aspect of analytic experience to complete our definition. I have said, or I tried to say, what I wanted to say is, I've tried to say, I've tried to say that the experience constitutes the limits of speech. The moment when speech fails. That's it. It's the moment when speech fails. Oh.
Just follow directions.
The moment when speech fails. And I would add that when speech fails, jouissance appears. We have changed. We are now operating in a radically different context. We leave the empirical order of sensibility to enter that of theoretical elaboration. Analytic theory postulates that at the moment when the patient is exceeded by his or her speech, jouissance surges forth. At the moment when the patient is exceeded by his or her speech, jouissance surges forth. Why? What is this jouissance?
No.
Let us set this question aside for a moment.
Say it
in order
again.
to return
Say it
to it
better.
when we address the second principle concerning the non-existence of a sexual relation.
Say it again. And say
We
it
can
better.
consider for the moment the concept of the symptom and concern ourselves with the first principle,
again.
which, as we will see,
And
claims
say it
the
better.
unconscious is a knowledge structured as language. We can pose the question once again, what is a symptom? We know generally that the symptom is a
come on,
disorder
give me a
that causes
break.
suffering
Is that all you
and
got to say?
manifests the pathological state of which it is an expression. But in psychoanalysis,
Say something
the
without
symptom appears to us differently
script,
than
man.
as a disorder that causes suffering. It is
Be
above all a
spontaneous.
malaise that is imposed on us, beyond us, which challenges
Say what's on
us.
your mind,
We
man.
describe this malaise with particular words and unexpected metaphors.
You're reading out of a goddamn book.
But whether it is a suffering or an odd word to describe the suffering, the symptom is above all an involuntary act produced apart from any intentionality and any conscious knowledge. Is an act which does not refer to a pathological state but is unconscious. Let's discuss the latent dream content. It comprises nocturnal sensory emissions. What kind of emissions could we be talking about? Perhaps that was a Freudian slip on my part. It's sensory impressions. Such impressions are continually impinging on the sleeper's waking sense organs. And at times, some of them take part in initiating a dream.
in which case they form part of the latent content of that dream. Examples of such sensations are familiar to all of us. The sound of an alarm clock, thirst, hunger, urinary or fecal urgency, pain from an injury or disease process, or from the cramped position of some part of the body, uncomfortable heat or cold, all can be part of the latent dream content. In this connection, it is important to bear two facts in mind.
All right.
The first is that most sensory, nocturnal sensory, nocturnal sensory, nocturnal sensory,
Step one.
nocturnal sensory,
You know what
nocturnal
happens next.
sensory
Step two.
stimuli
Step
do not
three.
disturb
It's very
sleep,
easy.
even to the extent of
Once you get the
participating
hang
in the
of it,
formation of a
I
dream.
think you'll enjoy it.
On the contrary, the vast majority of impulses from our sensory apparatus are without discernible effect upon our minds during deeper sleep. This is even true of sensations which in our waking state we should evaluate as rather intense. There are persons who can sleep through a violent thunderstorm, stern, very stern, or a thunderstorm, without either waking or dreaming, despite the fact that their hearing is quite normally acute. The second fact is that a disturbing sensory impression during sleep can have the effect of waking the sleeper directly without any dream, at least as far as he can tell. This is particularly obvious in those situations in which we are sleeping with one ear cocked. One ear is cocked. It's cocked. Or with one eye open, as happens, for example, with parents when a child in the family is sick. The second category of the latent dream content comprises of thoughts and ideas that are connected with the activities of the preoccupation of the dreamer's current waking life, and which remains unconsciously active in his mind during sleep. Because of their continued activity that tend toward waking the sleeper in the same way as impinging sensory stimuli during sleep tend to do. If the sleeper dreams instead of waking, these thoughts and ideas act as part of the latent dream content. Examples are innumerable. They include the whole variety of interests and memories which are ordinarily accessible to the ego, and whatever feelings of hope or fear, pride or humiliation. Interest or repugnance which may accompany them. It may be thought about as entertainment of the night before, concerned about unfinished tasks, the anticipation of a happy event in the future, or whatever else one might imagine in the current situations.
All right. Can we speed it up a little bit? All right, let's speed this up, all right? We're halfway through. No.
The third category comprises one or several impulses, which at least in their original infantile form
either way, all right?
are barred by the ego's defenses from consciousness or direct gratification in waking life.
Larry, get the
This is the
camera
part
up.
of
Bring
the
it over
which
this way.
Freud called the repressed in the monograph on the structural hypothesis
Closer
of
now. Real
apparatus.
Close up.
But though he later favored the view not generally accepted by the psychoanalyst, their impression is not the only defense which the ego employs against id impulses which are inadmissible to consciousness. Nevertheless, the term repressed continues in current usage to designate the part of the id.
Get closer.
With this understanding, there may be a third category of latent dream content in any particular dream, and it is impulse or impulses from the repressed part of the dream. Particular dream, it is the impulse or impulses is the impulse or impulses from the repressed part of the id. Since the most important and far-reaching of the ego's defenses against the id are those which are initiated during the pre-Oedipal and Oedipal phases of the child's life, it follows that impulses from those early years are the chief content of the repressed.
No, seriously, this is legit. This is legit
Accordingly,
stuff.
that part of the latent dream content
Totally legit.
which derives from the repressed is
Hella
generally
legit.
childish or infantile. That is to say, it consists
Can you put down
of
the
a
paper?
wish
I need to talk with you.
appropriate to and stemming
We
from
never
the
talk
early
anymore.
childhood.
You know we never talk
It
anymore.
consists of a wish appropriate to and stemming from early
Why
childhood.
won't you talk to me?
It
Why
consists
won't
of a
you
wish
talk to me?
appropriate to and stemming
Are you going to
from
talk about
early
the
childhood.
instructions for the strategy?
Why won't you
It's
talk
a
to me?
strategy, right?
Why?
Is this a strategy?
Why aren't we talking anymore?
This is just a strategy.
We don't talk anymore.
This is just a strategy,
Why don't we speak to each other anymore?
right? This is just a
The
strategy.
way we used to. Oh man. Oh man. Man. I miss talking with you. Really do. The way we used to talk. Before you changed. Before you changed.
It's just a strategy. This is imitation. It's just imitation.